They might be giants. Gog Magog. Before civilization came to the British Isles, legend had it that these lands were ruled by a fierce group of giants. Gog Magog was the most powerful of these beasts than any other, fighting through a brutal war with the armies of Troy. The stories say that this giant was the son of demons and had the strength of more than 20 men. But did you know that there was a race of giants? Oh yes, a race of giants. And one giant in particular was given the name, a legendary British giant. A British giant, you say, named Gog Magog. A later corrupted folk tradition in print altered the tradition around Gog Magog and Quirinius, the two giants Gog and Magog. So, very interesting. Can you believe, of all the names, there is a giant, a legend of a giant in Britain, in England proper, called Gog Magog. When I heard this, I about fell out of my chair. I'm like, say what? So Gog Magog, and I think it was Cindy Mama Bear shared this with me, but Gog Magog, the giant in Guildhall. So check this out, okay? So now that we know everything we know about Gog Magog and Rosh and so forth, now we've got this to consider. Okay, so Gog Magog was a legendary giant in Welsh and later English mythology. But we know legends often have truth in them. According to Geoffrey Monmouth, he was a giant inhabitant of Albion. Albion, you say? What is Albion? Albion is another name for England. That's right. Great Britain. Albion is an alternative name for Great Britain. Wow. So here's the White Cliffs of Dover that supposedly Gog Magog was thrown off into the great abyss. But think about this. Think about this, guys. This is very interesting. Okay. So we talked about the Russians, but what about the British? What's their role with Gog Magog? And why, of all names, would they give this giant the name Gog Magog? What is the connection here? Was he a descendant of Gog, a descendant of Magog? Was he a descendant of one of these tribes? So he was a giant inhabitant of Albion, thrown off a cliff during a wrestling match with Quirinius, a champion or a companion of Brutus of Troy. Gog Magog was the last of the giants found by Brutus and his men inhabiting the land of Albion. The effigies of Gog Magog and Quirinius, used in English pageantry and later instituted as guardian statues at Guildhall in London, eventually earned the familiar names Gog and Magog. So the name Gog Magog is often connected to the biblical characters Gog and Magog. Now these guys, they say, well, they argued it's a corruption of Car Magog, but I think we all know differently than that based on what we've studied. Gog Magog is pretty obvious. They say it's a corruption of Cower Mad Dog. Like, all right, come on. Gog Magog is that's actually biblical. So Gog Magog in the legend of the founding of Britain was, as written by Geoffrey, the island of Albion was once inhabited by giants. Okay, now think about this. So they're saying Great Britain was once inhabited by these giants. They might be giants. And it kind of makes sense, actually, because it's an island, and if you think you're giants, you're kind of being run out of town by most people, so you're probably going to find an island to inhabit. We know there are giants in the Bible. We know, the descendants of the Nephilim and the Anak, and the Anak, people like Goliath and so forth. So there's a good chance that they did escape to an island. And perhaps it was indeed the island of Great Britain that they escaped to. As you can see they have, those cliffs that we saw, would kind of make it hard for people to attack them. And, I think of Homer's Odyssey, right? And the Cyclops giants that they would fight and so forth. So by having the cliffs there, they could kind of throw rocks down on people that might try to come to the island or something of that nature. So in any case, supposedly they inhabited Great Britain, and back down here. But their numbers had dwindled and few remained. Gog Magog was one of these last giants. Okay, so they're naming this particular giant was named Gog Magog, and who was slain by Quirinius, a member of the invading Trojan colonizers headed by Brutus. Now, Brutus is where they get the name. Quirinius, eventually, that's how they get the name Cornwall. It's a place in Britain there. And Brutus is where they get the name Britain and the Britons. So he's the guy. He's the guy who started it all. So his story details the encounter as follows. Gog Magog, accompanied by 20 fellow giants, attacked the Trojan settlement and caused great slaughter. The Trojans rallied back and killed all giants except for one detestable monster named Gog Magog. In stature 12 cubits, and of such prodigious strength that at one shake he pulled up an oak as if it had been a hazel wand. He's captured so that Corineus can wrestle with him. The giant breaks 3 of Corineus' ribs, which so enrages him that he picks up the giant and carries him on his shoulders. I don't know, how did he carry a giant on his shoulders? To the top of a high rock, from which he throws the giant down into the sea. The place where he fell was known as Gog Magog's Leap to posterity. So, very interesting connection as we've been talking about the rise of Britain, or the re-rise of the Antichrist, and Chucky and all that he's doing and all the connections he has, that Gog Magog would actually be traced to Britain and some giant battle that took place. And that's very intriguing. So, there's obviously more to this story, but it's just kind of interesting here. It says, amongst the ragged cleaves those monstrous giants sought, who to appeal the Trojans brought great Gog Magog, an oak that by the roots could tear. So mighty were the men who lived there. But for the use of armies he did not understand, except some rock or tree that coming next to land, he raised out of the earth to execute his rage. He challenge makes for strength, and offereth there his gage, which Corin taketh up to answer by and by upon his son of earth his utmost power to try. So obviously a little poem there about the epic battle. So here's a picture of Gog and Magog that's in the Royal Arcade. So they made these statues of Gog and Magog, and they put them up as guards there in England, and which is kind of crazy when you think about Gog and Magog being the ones who are helping to destroy the world, and the idea that Chucky could be the one who helps to orchestrate it all, right? That he goes into Israel like he's a hero, he's the Messiah, and he's going to put himself up in the temple, and that he ends up being the one to help orchestrate this battle of Gog Magog. Maybe the whole term Gog Magog has a deeper meaning than what we think, and why it's used in Revelation as well. Here's Gog and Magog effigies being carried in the Lord Mayor's show. So there's Gog and Magog in a British parade that they're having. So it's part of the culture. It's something that they celebrate, and it's in French literature. The French rendition of Gog and Magog were recast in the role of enemies defeated by the giant Gargantua. So, I mean, I'm thinking, man, they should do a movie on this. It sounds really kind of a cool movie, like fighting these giants on this island. And in Irish folklore, it says, expands on the Genesis account of Magog as the son of Japheth. Okay, so we get a little deeper with the Irish, and Irish are very interesting, you know. I happen to be somewhat Irish myself, and kind of an interesting group. Their traditions going back to the Druids, and then the whole conversion to Christianity and everything. Very interesting story there. So I'm not surprised that they would have some connections that go back here to Genesis account of Magog as the son of Japheth, and make him the ancestor to the Irish through Partholan, leader of the first group to colonize Ireland after the deluge, or after the flood, right? So they go all the way back to the flood account, and they say this guy Partholan was the guy who colonized Ireland after the flood, and he's a descendant of Magog. So they actually trace their lineage, they trace Ireland back to being descendants of Magog, as also were the Malaysians. Not the Malaysians of Malaysia. Maybe it does mean that. But the people of the fifth. The people of the fifth invasion of Ireland. Okay, yeah, I didn't think it was the same Malaysians. Magog was also the progenitor of the Scythians. Okay, I was telling you about the Scythians. Go watch that video, as well as of numerous other races across Europe and Central Asia. His 3 sons were Boath, Jobhath, and Fathachta. So, guys, very intriguing. Here's a couple of these giants. Here's Gog and Magog giving Patty a lift out of the mire. Gog and Magog giving Patty a lift out of the mire. They're such a loving bunch, those Gog and Magogs, until they come and try to burn your city down. Oh, they're such a lovely bunch. So there you go, guys. Very intriguing stuff. A couple more thoughts on this. Showed you that. What's this? Oh, here's the 2 giants. Gog and Magog are associated with Guildhall. This is in England. Guildhall. Just to show you that, here's what Guildhall looks like. So they built 2 statues of Gog and Magog for this place, but like 3 times these statues have been destroyed. It's like God's trying to wipe them out. and they keep trying to celebrate Gog and Magog, who are actually against God, right? So why would you keep trying to celebrate these characters? But they're associating with these giants. So Gog and Magog, two giants, Gog and Magog are associated with Guildhall. Legend has it that the two giants were defeated by Brutus and chained to the gates of his palace on the site of Guildhall. Early carvings of Gog and Magog were destroyed in Guildhall during the Great Fire of London. They were replaced in 1708 by a large pair of wooden statues carved by Captain Richard Saunders. These giants, on whom the current versions are based, lasted for more than 200 years before they were destroyed in the Blitz. So the Great Fire of London and World War II destroyed these statues, but they keep remaking them. They in turn were replaced by a new pair carved by David Evans and given to the city of London, who had been Lord Mayor. So you kind of wonder, gee, why are they so obsessed with this Magog character? Here's the figure of Magog, one of the new ones that was carved and replaced. And so this is their history. This is what they think how Britain started. Is that they fought Gog Magog. And the Gog Magog Hills are a range of low chalk hills extending for several miles to the southeast of Cambridge in England. So they use these terms Gog Magog throughout their culture. So what do you guys think? I want to get your thoughts in the comments. So let me know your thoughts. I'm going to be over in the after video chat room. Just go to the first link in this description, MikhailMinistries.com. I'll be there hanging out, waiting to talk to you. So if you have some thoughts, come over to the after video room. When you get there, you just click on the left-hand side bar. You'll see this